I'm super excited to be here. We're in the coveted after lunch spot. Are you guys awake? Okay, this is going to be a participatory thing, so you're going to have to stay awake and stay with us. How many of you guys have had a design that you loved and it never saw the light of day? Right? Or you like just knew it could be so good, but you, like a CEO came in and was like, it has to be blue. No reason why, right? So today what we're going to talk about is really what we all face. Like, I trust that you guys all know how to design, you know what good design is, but when the reality hits the road, sometimes that design just doesn't get out there. And the reasons it doesn't get out there is because of people or politics or budget. So that's really what we're going to be focusing on today.
I need this mic. So our goals for today, well, let me adjust to this, thank you. It's going to be here. Basically, we're going to refer to some of our past experiences, hopefully not gloating or anything like that. We're actually going to go through a little bit of humility, tell you about our war stories, and share that together too. And then we hope that the specific ways that we're going to share, there will be specific ways there for you guys to go back on Monday, beyond the aspirational stuff and so forth. How do we deal with these internal politics or the war stories that we're going to share? So with that in mind, why don't we get started? And let's really quickly, this is sort of the imposter syndrome slide here, just making sure like we kind of build ourselves up and then bring it down. So Sarah, little introduction again.
Yeah, just, why listen to us, really? So as you guys heard, I am a coach. I am a career coach at General Assembly, which is a phenomenal place. I'm really passionate about bringing possibility and purpose into people's lives, which is why I'm at General Assembly. How many General Assembly folks do we have here? Woo!
It's a huge
Shout
contingency.
Out to GA. For those of you that don't know General Assembly, it's an education institution focused on technology, design, and business, and it really fosters the spirit of taking risks, transforming your life, and trying something new. So let's raise your hands again even if you've ever taken a workshop or anything. So if you're interested in exploring it, taking a class, definitely talk with anyone here, pretty much. So before I came to General Assembly, I had my own business as a coach, which was tons of fun. And before that, I was a user experience designer with Forum One Communications. Worked with some really awesome companies like the World Bank, USDA, ASPCA. And really what I'm excited about today is kind of bringing those two worlds together. So bringing my coaching side of things with user experience design.
And since you already got the bio, I'm not going to go over that, but again, I'll draw on some of these experiences, some of the more well-known places I worked for, like ARP and AOL. So if there's anybody, a couple of people in the audience that are our former colleagues, the names of the innocents have been changed, so I'm not really saying anything disparaging personally.
So how do we do? Do we feel like we're credible sources here? Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Get ready. Okay.
So a little bit of story time. We'll take turns here. The goal of this is for you guys to feel comfortable. So if we embarrass ourselves a little bit, or if we talk about our past troubles, not triumphs, you guys are able to share that too, because in a minute, you guys are going to be doing this, and hence trying this experimental workshop with so many people. Sarah, we'll get us started.
All right, so I'm going to tell you guys one of my worst user experience design stories. I was working with a particular client that was pretty challenging, and we had spent a lot of time really enrolling them in the idea of agile, and we want to move fast, and we're going to be sketching, and we don't want to spend a ton of time on documentation. And they were like, yeah, we get it. We're hip, we're cool, we want to be part of that too. And the very first deliverable that I gave them was a content map. So it was like a really high level of what the navigation was going to be, and like just like general buckets of the things that will be in each of those sections. And the email that I got back was a link to a definition of information architecture from 2011. And if you can go to the next slide. And this is what a sitemap is. So I'm sharing that story because I'm assuming that we've all had some sort of experience where you think that you're on the same page and then you present something and they're like, why did you give this to me? This is not what I wanted. Yeah.
So thank you for that. And it might be a little bit emotional support group for all of us in a bit, I think. So not so much of a specific story, but you guys been here before, right? This one of these meetings where these are your peers. Maybe they're not exactly doing what you do. They're not doing IA work. They're not making a content strategy. They're not doing specifically what you're doing, but they're your team. These are folks that understand what I do. And I'm looking at these faces. QA people, product people, designers, whatever walks of life. They're working with us. And probably doesn't help that I'm sitting there filtering the crap out of pictures of a meeting. That's probably not the most engaging thing for me to do. But I want to put this slide up for the sake of it's on us to be able to actually talk to them. And when they're not interested in this stuff, when they're being apathetic, when they're not able to see the value of what we're trying to do, not just what we're trying to do, but what the organization is trying to do, that's what's going to be the result of it. And it's not just for us to say, oh, well, give me the authority, or let me drive this thing and so forth. You need to kind of earn it. You need to kind of be able to lead that position. It's what we do, whether it's the stuff that was being talked about this morning. Is it UX? Is it this label, that label? Whatever you want to call ourselves, it needs to be including this idea of how do I lead this? How do I make relevant the conversation that I'm having, which is very technical maybe, to even other people that are technical in a different way in a cross-disciplinary fashion, so I don't get this faces in my meeting. This happened a lot. Some of these people I think you recognize, a couple of people there. Mark.
So before we go into how we addressed the challenges that we faced, we want to take a couple minutes and have you think about your most recent challenge, and turn to the person sitting next to you, and explain the challenge that you faced, and how you dealt with it, right? And then afterwards, so we're going to do a little bit of sharing right now, and drawing from each other, and then we'll come back and we'd love to hear what you learned. So, you can go to the next slide. Yeah. So.
We are part of General Assembly, so it looks like a little bit of instruction or anything. It's for that reason. We can't get it out of our system.
We're instructors by nature. So I want to turn to the person next to you. Partner A is going to be the person with shorter hair. You're going to go first. So you're going to take... Hopefully that's not hard to figure out. So you're going to take 5 minutes and think of a recent challenge and go there, I just shared that I had someone email a link about defining what information architecture is, so don't be afraid to share something that was maybe embarrassing or difficult. Partner B, you're going to listen, write down some of the things that you're hearing on a Post-it note, and then you're going to share how you might have addressed this challenge. And then partner A, you're going to share what you did if this was in the past or if it's current, brainstorm some ways you could handle this challenge.
This involves active listening, so you should be writing this stuff that they're talking about and vice versa if you're not picking up on that. So Post-it notes are coming around. If you would indulge us. We'll take 5 minutes to do this.
Can also use the Post-it notes to capture key learnings or lessons.
How was that? Cathartic? Nice. Any shout outs how that felt for the first version of this? The first person? The short-haired person? Was it cathartic for everybody?
Feels good, doesn't it, right?
How about for the long-haired person? How was it for you? All right,
cool.
so.
All right, we're gonna switch now. So partner Partner B, the long-haired partner B, is now going to share a story, a challenge that you faced. Partner A, your job is to actively listen and think about some of the ways you might handle this challenge.
In case you forgot, we switched to A's and B's, so you can come back up here again if you forgot what to do.
Okay.
You guys are loving this way too much.
I know, I love it. So much to say. So I'd love to hear from you guys.
All right, everyone.
What did you learn?
Can we take some volunteers? We have a mic in the audience. Who wants to share a couple of anecdotes here? We will call on you if you don't. All right, we got one up here. You need the mic, yeah.
Oh, no.
You personally don't need the mic.
Yeah.
But one needs the mic just because of audio.
Well, I shared a story about I spent a story about my team bringing me onto a project super late, which is very normal for UXers. But the team that I was brought on kind of got defensive about my being there. And it was really uncomfortable for me for the first hour because it was just like clawing at the wall and trying to get up. And it was just really uncomfortable. And of course, I chatted, I got charming, of course, and got out of the hole after the 2-hour meeting. But I didn't need to start out that way. So my partners helped me and said, basically you needed to do some UX with the actual team, not just on the project. So though you didn't have buy-in in the beginning, just start off with not just jumping into the project to say, hey, how can I help you guys now? Let's try to start this as if it is the beginning of the project, because it is, because I just got there. So it's kind of
Awesome. Could everyone hear that? You guys yeah, I love that. So all the workshops, the things that you do to make sure your clients are on board, sometimes you need to do that with your own team, right? And especially if you're coming in the middle of the process, you can't assume that you're all on the same page of what needs to get done and how it's going to get done. What else? What else did you learn?
I'm the short-haired one.
I love it.
But yeah, so we were working with a client. It was a government agency, and we were suggesting kind of a big change to their process. And the project managers were on board with it, the product owners, UX, and and it was all based on interviews that we had done with their customers. But we had to go through and review it with the legal team, and they were really pushing back. They didn't want to make that big of a change. They just didn't think it was worth it. So what we ended up doing is going back to the recordings of the interviews. We put together a presentation slide, and we typed up the actual quotes, and we had audio clips in there. And after 3 weeks of going back and forth and them just saying no, 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 once they actually heard the voices of the people like complaining about this, they were like, well, okay, and they agreed.
Awesome. Yeah, there's nothing better than a customer complaint, like right in front of the person that has to make the decision. That's brilliant. What else?
No other
Don't be shy.
brave folks? One more volunteer, perhaps? No?
Jay's got one up here. Oh, I could give you my mic. That would probably be easier.
So recently was brought in to a site redesign project, and it was clear it was going to be able to handle the design work, but it was also clear the platform they're going to use is some SharePoint or SharePoint type platform, so there's not a lot of heavy development work, but the challenge was educating a client to the difference between a design profile and a developer profile and the value of drawing a distinction between those two things, because on one hand, I didn't want to devalue my role or our ability to meet their needs, but I also didn't want to miseducate them as to that there is no meaningful distinction between those two things. So it's sort of the challenge of how much effort am I going to put in at this point, making sure they understand that those two roles probably should be distinct going forward without devaluing their concept of our ability to deliver whatever they need. So that's where I was at, and it wasn't especially difficult to do that. I think I threaded the needle in terms of assuring them that maybe just a half-time developer role is going to make it work. But it was a question in my mind in terms of how much effort are you going to put in right now in terms of educating them without putting them off to getting on the project and getting everything started. So.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, so I think we get so deep in our work sometimes we forget that there are a lot of people out there that don't even know what UX is, right? Or understand the differences between a developer and a designer. And our role is in many ways about educating people. Any other shares?
We are going to ask you guys to put those post-it notes at the end, somewhere we can share, but it would be awesome if you have one more anecdotal here. Nobody. How many of these stories that you guys heard, these three, resonate with everybody?
We got one. Or was it
All right. Okay.
back? Was that a hand
couch
for her to
right there.
share? Yeah.
Somebody else has a better story.
You have the best story. I know it. Oh, I think you just turned it off.
All right, I'll just talk loud. So the challenges that he had and I had were very similar that we shared. We both do accessibility work, and when we interact with UX people, we had the same situation: data, right? How to represent data that are responsive and desktop and hold on. And he works for one type of organization, I work for a different type. And the way he handled it was different. His organization decided to take the data and do twice the amount of development to provide the customer's expectations. Whereas our organization, we made them do the CSS, HTML, JavaScript differently. So that way they manage their data once. It was a challenge. He shared with those challenges, and I shared with my challenge. At the end of the day, we both got what we needed, but it was still a challenge. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. I mean, there's lots of ways to go about things, and there's not necessarily one right answer. So I love that you guys were sitting next to each other and you had the same thing and approached it differently. It's perfect. And part of the reason that we did this is because we want you all to remember that you're not alone in this process, that we all face these challenges in our work, and that the more that we use each other and lean on each other and brainstorm and aren't afraid to say, this happened or a client said this, the easier it's going to be for all of us.
It's also remembering that you guys are all here for that exact reason, right? But we don't do this is once a year, or there are other events that we all meet up at and connect. So the question will be, by the time we're done, hopefully we'll get to this, you guys will feel a little bit more empowered. How do you rely on somebody on a regular basis to kind of rescue you when you need a sounding board of, okay, how do I get out of this? How do I convince these people? Some of the stuff is really obvious, but how do I actually, on a clutch where I need this advice of, talk to these folks this way, use testimonials, little tricks of the trade that or you've seen, but you haven't practiced enough, being able to expose that, be able to go to these resources. I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty bad at actually knowing where these things are, but actually putting them to use over and over again. So, sorry, we're supposed to be doing this, we did it. All right, so what do we learn? I guess maybe we'll lead this section by sharing a few of things that we were talking about, just like you guys did. And please feel free to jump in and tell us how we approach these things wrong, or what you want to add to it, right? And we'll go from there. Part of this stuff, invoking inception here, putting ideas in people's heads, like knowing if I have a plan and if I want to go somewhere with this stuff, what can I do to come as close as possible to inception? As much as I can, putting things, working the long game, working essentially working the client, kind of like what you guys were talking about. A few of the stories definitely were about that. Do I do this now? Is this a little bit of a inching closer? Am I winning by a few bullet points? I'm getting my bosses and colleagues and so forth to start speaking the same vocabulary. We're all good at taxonomy here, right? So how do I own the language a little bit over time? How do I start making them ask the questions? And it's a lot easier for us to do what we want to do if they're asking for it. So this is not as tactical of a suggestion here, but it's the thing of how do I make it tactical in my everyday? It's going beyond writing style guides and rules and so forth and distributing that.
I think that this is also a place where we have to take our ego out of it, right? Because we want to be the one that was like, that was my idea. Like, I was the one that said we needed testing, or like, I was the one that's been saying for 6 months that we need more budget, right? But sometimes you have to kind of like take a step back and really appreciate that what you've been saying has actually gone into their mind and now they want it and getting on board with it.
Some of these photos, by the way, this is just backdrop. Since they are actually real photos, don't assume that this is, I'm trying to protect the innocent again. But anyhow, moving the project forward sometimes is about just not necessarily thinking of it in the context of what we do. Maybe some of this relates to the stuff in the morning where are we actually IAs anymore? How broad is our conversation and so forth? But the story that made me think of this is at ARP, we actually have access to call centers, right? That's not for everybody, but some way of reaching to your customers. Maybe you have a different mechanism for doing that. We had that opportunity. It was a great thing. And, as much as we had that for years, I was working there, and, I was never part of this, your calls being monitored for quality assurance. Like, okay, why don't we get on that? Why don't we actually listen to these people? What are they having, conflict with? And it was actually not that hard of a request. It was a pretty easy thing to go to them and say, you know what, how about routing every call that has to do with the website to this number? And we'll just have this kind of maybe it wasn't a Zen moment, but it was a couple hours of we just sitting there, and all of a sudden from the speaker above the meeting room, a call came in, and we were just listening to a live call. People are complaining about something, and that was very, very, as you can imagine, rewarding, because here we are, designers or otherwise, whatever our jobs are, listening to a specific person getting confused. You would be completely surprised maybe about the level of kind of revelations we would get. Things from, oh my God, our call center folks need better training. They don't know where this stuff is, they're giving them the wrong instruction. To the ultimate thing of, actually it's not their fault, this is confusing, so how do we resolve this? The whole sense of prioritization of what do we need to go after based on the fact that we just heard that, back to the testimonial thing you guys were talking about earlier, is so different. It's so different than just listening to a Jira ticket, oh, this has come in, and as a user, I must do this. That's one thing, but prioritizing it according to this visceral reaction of this person, this was ARP, so above a certain age, having this difficulty, exactly how they were having that issue, it was very eye-opening in terms of not just talking the talk of empathy and whatnot, but practical, this is what we're doing. Internally, it was really helpful too. Internally, it was helpful because now we have a lot of cachet. Not just, we're not the only one going there listening to these things. We're getting marketing people to come and listen. So for the time that particular procedure lasted, it was nice. It was nice to be on the same page of, just like I heard in one of the stories of, over time winning people over. You're not just a messenger, they're hearing it firsthand. So you have the opportunity to do that. If it's not call center, if it's something else, make use of it.
Yeah, I think you can also, sometimes it's a luxury to have a call center or a luxury to have the budget to do user testing, but don't be afraid to do guerrilla testing to get your mom to record your mom using the site, or someone in a different department, or someone you just grab at a coffee shop. There are a lot of ways that you can get the information you need, even if you don't have the budget to do it.
Yeah, I guess the point is it doesn't have to be right. We're more critical of our methodology than somebody else is going to be. If you can just move it forward enough so you can apply the methodology later, that's a win too. I guess on that note, sort of like what we're talking about, maybe this is a little bit meta, but the exact idea of you guys are here, workshops, working with people is a lot more productive. So it's the notion of having studio times, it's the notion of things that you literally like doing, critiquing and so forth. I'm going to go over and look at somebody else's wireframe and give them critique if we make the time. So can I do something? Can I have a weekly coffee time or something with low bar, not a big big burden of what is the feedback going to be or anything like that? But now I'm getting cross-divisional, maybe especially for a larger organization, if you're in that environment, how do I get them to see our stuff? We see their things, and comment on it that way. One other thing in terms of like your ongoing propaganda, evangelism, and all that is, if this stuff is in public, this is obviously not an actual photo of it, but we used to do this a lot in a couple of the companies up there that I put in my background, and it was really beneficial because it's in the high traffic area. So it becomes a little bit of propaganda on our part of, this is what we're working on, this is what's important to us, these are the comments that you guys are making, it provides transparency, blah, blah, blah. You get where I'm going with this. How many of you have done tactics like this, in fact? Would you say this is effective? Yeah? Any kind of, anything I'm getting wrong here that you want to add to? Just kind of make this a
Remember,
bit more
we
interactive.
said this was going to be participatory.
Yeah.
Even though there are a lot of us.
To your point of like just putting it in a high traffic area, I've found that works incredibly well because you'll get input from people that necessarily don't give input, and you get different ideas, different things come out that you wouldn't normally get. So yeah, like tweak your process to get new information as much as possible.
Awesome. Yeah, like how rare is it to get a CEO or a board member to respond to an email or a call or get a meeting, but when it's up in front of them, they're going to comment to you and be like, hey, I saw that thing. It's cool, but what if you did this?
I guess one more in this series of sort of, I feel like we're kind of giving you guys advice as if we know any better than you do, but it's more, again, in the spirit of cathartic, like, hey, I tried this, it seems to work. So hopefully it doesn't come across to you the other way. But the other thing is like one cool experience that we didn't mean to do, completely accidental, and then after we realized it's like, that was awesome, let's repeat that again. It was this notion of we didn't have a budget. How many people have kind of run into this problem of whether you're a cost center or whatever, like the fact that you don't hold the purse is really holding you back? Like you're not in the budget. UX is not part of the agenda, or IA is not part of the agenda, or visual design is not part of the agenda, whatever it is. And they just kind of, you're an afterthought, right? Money talks. So for the longest time, at this one job, I was trying to kind of establish that. How do we put this on a cyclical schedule? And what happened was that the information architect, whose title was information architect on the team, and was responsible for this stuff, like, okay, why don't we slate your reporting on a cyclical basis? Why don't we do it on a monthly basis? And you have this report. And what if we go in, companies around town like MediaBarn, that's what we were using at the time. Let's go over there, let's have this usability test study, and I want to justify this as a budget. So we put that line item there, we were doing that. So the benefits were great, and that's sort of what you can imagine. Now it's on the radar, it's on the roadmap, product roadmaps comes around, this is the time that we're going to test this thing. That was awesome, that's going to help us. But the extra benefit was kind of the political power play, right? It gives me something to play with. Bunch of competing managers are coming over and saying, I want this thing built, I want that thing built, and they don't want to resolve the issue. They don't want to resolve the conflict that they're actually causing in the design, right? So having that chip to play with of saying, that sounds great, I would like this thing to be tested. You agree with that? Yes, okay. But you know what, I don't have a slot for you till September. Do you have a budget? Is your boss important enough for me to listen to you? You can resolve a lot of those issues that way. And if they do, great, that's what I have to listen to, so now I have a different constraint to work with. But if they don't, it's idea of making you aware of all those other projects that are coming ahead of you for a reason. The business has decided this, right? Let's come to an agreement. It helps with the negotiation power tremendously. So I guess the moral of the story there was that we didn't set out to do this, but we actually killed a few birds with one stone. We were actually able to kind of utilize that and get into this practice and elevating the importance of what we were doing and how it informed back to the original guy, the information architect, who was working on this on a daily basis and trying to establish some kind of an arc over the entire product roadmap.
And how did you get them on board with getting that initial testing?
The initial budget for right. That took like maybe over a year. Just, I mean, this
Just to
not meant to
normalize.
sound like all down and whatever, but that actually takes hard work. When the culture isn't there for that, it's actually difficult to do that. But a lot of the other things we were talking about, or other techniques and other sort of tricks, just being very pragmatic and very motivated, and like, how do I finagle, and how do I get to know what this person, the rest of these departments, what is it, what is the culture here? It was about that. That's why it took a while. In different organizations, I'm hoping it would go a little bit faster. Our culture at that time was kind of slow.
Awesome. So now I want to share with you guys. So we talked about some, sort of general tips and tricks, and now I want to talk about one specific tool that you can use to influence and get what you want. So how many of you have personally been in a situation for yourself where there's something you want, but there's a wall in the way? Great. We can all. Everyone can relate to that, right? And then the same thing too for someone else, where you want something, but they want something, right? But maybe they don't realize they really need it, and there's a wall in the way, right? So whether it's getting budget from someone, or a promotion, what are some other? The what? The NPR, yeah, absolutely, right? There's no matter what it is, even if it's like, I want coffee, there's something in the way of you getting there. Like, you have to overcome something. You have to get out of bed. You're going to have to spend money, maybe, or you have to make the coffee, right? So this is something you can use in professional, something I recommend using professionally, also something you can use personally. Double benefit.
And for the purpose of this conversation, in the diagram, the stick figure is not you. Kind of like, you're not the user. You're not the stick figure. This is the person whose problem we're trying to solve.
Exactly. It's a really beautiful
That will help us.
diagram, complex. So the
Spared, no expense on this.
the flower is the thing that you want, right? It's like the gold. It's the thing that you want, and it's the thing that you think that stakeholder, that client wants as well. Like, maybe it's a really beautiful website. And then the wall is the thing that's in the way. So when you're faced with a wall or a challenge, what's the first thing you usually do?
Bang head on wall.
Bang, yeah. Bang head on the wall, yeah. Go.
Why is the challenge?
Why is it a challenge? Great.
Communicate.
Cool.
Understand the motivation.
Awesome. Understand the motivation. Motivation, yeah, that's a good one.
Risk assess.
Try to get someone else on my side, have like a side conversation.
Love it. Yeah, maybe you can put them on
Build
your
allies.
shoulders and they can get over.
A couple closed door conversations.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so also something that I think we do a lot too is we try and reduce the size of the wall, right? You can go to the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, okay, pay attention.
Out of
folks.
order.
Yeah. So we try and reduce the size of the wall so that you can get over too. So those were all really perfect answers. And a lot of times we do that. Like, maybe you're freelancing and you negotiate your rate down, or you're really passionate about this beautiful navigation, and you decide to change it because they're not really on board, and then it doesn't really make sense anymore, but it kind of does, and you just want to get it out. So it's like, okay, that's good enough. So you reduce the pressure that's in the way so that you can get over to the flower. So there's nothing wrong with that, but I think it also can really backfire on you sometimes too, right? So if you never get the funding for testing and you compromise that on every project, kind of sets a precedent that you're always going to lower the bar, right?
It's a rational response, though. So it's
Totally.
I mean,
yeah.
But I mean, maybe the counterintuitive thing is what I think you're about to tell us.
So another approach to this is to increase the size of the flower, right? So you want to make that flower so big that it's not just at the same level, but if you go to the next slide, it's actually so big that it's so obvious that you would want to climb right over that wall and get to that flower. And so what do you guys like? So if you think about it, this can be done in a lot of different ways. But what's most important is that the person, the stakeholder, actually genuinely increases the size of that flower for themselves to the point where they see it and they're willing to step over and climb over that wall. So it might be something like showing them audio from a call center. It might be something like drilling down and getting the specific numbers that they're going to save. If they're a CFO or CEO, numbers speak really loudly, right? It could be showing how many people have left, what the turnover rate has been, and how that's cost money. It could be showing how much money you've saved the company. Thinking a lot about money right now, but it doesn't have to be money. It could also be like showing customers that are really satisfied, right? Or developing new ideas. But the key is that that other person has to really want it. Otherwise, you can't move forward with what you're trying to do. Does that make sense?
Really, I think part of the reason you're going into all the money examples is because it really does sound like negotiation. I'm sure most of us here hate that kind of part of new jobs or anything like that too, or if you're freelancing or working with clients and whatnot, but it sounds a lot like that. We want to increase the value, and the first thing we're going to do instead of this is beat ourselves down, lower our rate, or try to go after it in a different way and so forth. Like, what would you do this if we were making it a little sweeter for you? And it's like, maybe that's not the right approach. Maybe the better approach is genuinely making them want it more, so it's not as much of a barrier anymore. And there's lots of examples for this. I don't know if you guys want to start sharing, but we'll force you to if you don't volunteer.
Well, another thing that's really important about this is that you actually have to ask questions, and you have to understand what's important to the stakeholder. I think the beauty of user experience design and information architecture is that we are all really empathetic people, and that you can use, I think sometimes we forget to use the things that we do with customers and with our design, with our stakeholders, with our board members, with our bosses, right? If you don't understand what makes your boss tick, how are you going to get a promotion? How are you going to give them what they want and really understand that, get to the point where they're so excited about giving you a promotion, they're willing to fight for you. They're willing to go into their boss's office and negotiate the budget so that you can get what you want, or you get on that project that you want to get on. So is this resonating with you guys? Does it make sense? Has anyone experienced something like this successfully for themselves? Or if not, like, what do you see how you could use this in your life or in your work? Go ahead.
Hi. I was working on a wireframe project for a VR app, and the app just didn't have an aggressive enough timeline to go out as soon as we wanted to. So I printed out the wireframes, and apparently print isn't dead and people still print things out, but no one in my office had seen that before. So we literally put up like science fair projects, and it got a lot of exposure, and now the app's coming out a lot more sooner than it was planned.
Awesome. So that was a way that you physically made the flower bigger. You're like, here, you can see it. Awesome. Any other examples or shares? Okay. We like to keep our volunteers active.
Keep you running. I've been able to basically insert myself into UX and insert more UX into my company just by being like, I guess, just like an influencer in the sense of like, I just always talk about it. I always talk about best practices with everyone, even if they're not UX people, with developers, with project managers. And I find ways to basically make it like accessible to everybody, make it so that it's like, because at my company there's a very small UX team and it's growing, and so most people don't really know a lot about it or what it's about and why it's important. And so kind of like constantly being, like bringing it back to that conversation point has been really successful and has gotten a lot of people really excited about it. And a lot more people have sort of jumped on board and are willing to have more specific conversations now about like, oh, okay, I get what this is now. How can this be applied to my specific project? So
Love it.
just
Yeah.
kind of get in people's faces a bit.
Yeah. So part of it is understanding like and asking the questions to know what they want, and then and then being the constant reminder, like, hey, there's this thing we're doing. It's going to make a big impact. Remember, like you have to be the squeaky wheel. Otherwise, like it's like a forest out there. Actually, it's not just one flower, right? There's tons of things that we all want, that every person wants and is bombarded by, and you need to keep your flower growing and large. Go ahead.
Well, I had a situation that was kind of fits this, but it was actually, there was a wall between two different groups of people involved in the process, and then both of them trying to get to the same flower. And I worked for a news organization. There's tends to be some walls between editorial and advertising sides, and so crazy.
Never.
Yeah,
Never.
and so. So through the process of actually starting user research and starting that, and we're trying to bring the user into the process, it kind of made them both realize that they both had a common goal, and that wall between them started to go down, and they started sharing the problems that each were facing on a daily basis. And so through that process, they kind of saw that, okay, well, it's not that we're really against each other, it's just we both have issues we have to deal with in order to get to that flower.
Love it. Awesome. Go ahead. Yeah.
Comment, if you work, I think, Mike, I have a big mouth. I think what Mick said this morning about journalists being IAs, I think anybody who works in any kind of media organization, if we were mine, I started my career as a journalist. So I think that would be a good way to help win that audience over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something our agency has been trying, and it's been working out really well, is having these team lunches where when we kick off a new project, everybody in the office gathers into the conference room. We all cram in from every corner and role in our creative agency, and everybody has the opportunity to share ideas. And this kind of sprouted out of our problem of us fighting for our ideas and wanting more time for our ideas, but nobody else had a sense of ownership, and so nobody else wanted to invest time into it. But by bringing everyone in and giving them the opportunity to witness the birth of these ideas, then they're more willing to take a little bit of the company's time or find a way to make it work or go back to the client and ask for more money in some occasions, but they're willing to invest because that sense of ownership is more universal throughout the company rather than belonging to one person.
Absolutely. Right. This is like the like underlining comment of this is ownership, right? Because if they don't own it, it's not going to go anywhere. You obviously have to be the primary owner, but they need to have some stake in the game too. So one thing that I forgot to mention in the beginning is that this is actually something that one of my mentors shared with me, Mark Hunter. He's an incredible coach in Baltimore. Definitely recommend checking him out and want to give him credit for this. And it's very effective if you start practicing. So what we're going to do now is actually have you practice. This is super participatory, like I said. Can't fall asleep after lunch. So we're going to go back to your original partner, and you can, if it makes sense, you can use the challenge that you had when we first did this, or think of something that you're working on now. Partner A is going to practice using this technique, and partner B, you're going to be that stakeholder. So partner A, you need to let partner B know who they are. And you're going to pretend to really get yourself in the shoes of that person, whether you're a boss, a manager, a client, stakeholder, and give it a shot and see how you do. So partner A,
And
you're
go.
going to go first. Ready? We'll give you 5 minutes. Okay. All right, partner B, I wanted to just take a couple minutes and share some feedback. What were the things that like really captured you and you're like, oh my God, I really want that. I'm willing to climb over that wall. Or what are some things they could have done that would have had you more excited about it and more enrolled in the possibility? So we'll just take 2 minutes. All right, we're gonna switch. Partner B, it's your turn. Partner B, you're gonna think of a situation where you have a really something that you want in work, a challenge you faced recently. Tell partner A who they are, and practice the flower technique. All right, you have 5 minutes. Partner A, you're gonna just take a couple minutes and share your genuine feedback. Were you excited? Did you want to climb that wall? What worked and what didn't? I'd love to hear for some people what was that like for you, and what did you learn through that process? Come back. All right, who will share? What did you guys learn through that process? I know some of your names. Oh, was that a hand there? That was a hand. I saw. No? Okay. That was a hooray.
Oh.
All right, we got someone. Brave soul. Thank you.
I guess ultimately I don't like using this. Ultimately what I learned, oh, I need it, okay. What we learned throughout all of the exercises was communication was key. And that sounds like an easy word, like you just need to communicate, but that's one of my hardest things, like how to use the right words and when and with the right people. So that was like our ultimate lesson of no matter what the problem was, it could be fixed with communication, but there's still that problem of how do we better communicate with each other.
Yeah, absolutely, and making sure that you both are hearing each other too, right? It's really easy to spew words out. I mean, you can see like I'm asking you guys a lot for feedback. That's on purpose because I want to understand if you're hearing what I'm saying and getting it, right? So yeah, communicate. I mean, everything is communication. What else? What else did you guys get? Did it feel kind of weird doing it the first time? It's a little bit weird, right?
It's like a shy crowd. It's too big. Unlike the classroom, I feel more comfortable. Be like, and you, ma'am. But we have a volunteer. Thank you.
Me? Her first or me? Oh, so I had a challenge with a position that I'm applying for, and it's for a department that's in my company but in a different city. So when I was speaking to my partner about the approach I wanted to take with it, it was extremely like focused on my passion and why I'm passionate about the practice that they have in that other city but still in the company. And he was explaining to me how it would be more effective if I approach it by saying the experience I have here can be leveraged to perform well there since I have this work here as a foundation. So it was just interesting to understand how you may initially go into it with, a want, but that can be secondary to how the logical application can be the primary.
Awesome, I love that. I think that's really great too because sometimes we think that if we just show how good we are or are really clear about how passionate we are, all those things are really important. But if it doesn't translate to what the other person needs, and if you don't understand what they need, then it's not going to go anywhere, right? So I love that, like connecting, like I have specific experience here that I learned that you need over here. It's not about me, it's about what you need to accomplish for your business in that city. And bonus is I get to go there.
So I'm going to tell the story from my partner here in our AB communication. So I like what he did at his company, where he was able to, in a few years, take experience design as it started out as a sort of lowly thing stuck underneath product development, and he was able to build up this beautiful flower to the company of if he gets the chance to really think about marketing and customer service and everything as an experience design, and have experience design report up to the CEO and be really a primary function within the organization. And it's kind of the holy grail. And he's done it, and it's wonderful. And he did that by creating that story for the company that if it was a more primary function, then he could look at things holistically and not be biased by one particular division that had their agenda on top of everyone else's agenda. This way he can think about the company as a whole, as the experience of the customers as a whole. So hurrah, hurrah.
Nice. I love it. I love it. I love it. The extra bonus of being a user experience designer is you can bring that strategy to all departments. Cool. What else? Oh, we got a hand in the back.
Hi. So my partner and I actually use this as a chance. Oh, go ahead and turn around. As a chance to hype each other up,
Nice.
because we talked a little bit about how convincing yourself before you try to convince someone else, it makes you a much more engaging and a much more eloquent speaker, as I'm not right now. But particularly, we were talking about sort of arguing for your case. So he was talking about an interview, and I was talking about trying to increase morale with just a couple small steps. And so when you're able to, in a more comfortable setting, list out the benefits, list out exactly why this is a really good route, you're much more able to convince someone in a higher position.
Awesome. I love that. I love it too. And also, like, some of the things or like tips or tricks to think about when you're doing this is to go into it pretty open and curious and ask a lot of questions. So if you and think of it as like a conversation, right? Foz was saying how this is similar to negotiating. And negotiating, you have to get a no to know that you are negotiating, right? That's part of the process, and it's a conversation. So anytime you come into something and you feel like you're pitching it or convincing, and it gets shut down, like, great, you just made it to the first step. And being able to be really open to what the solution could be, because if you are really stuck on one thing, it's likely that the other person's going to have a hard time getting on board with you too. So asking the questions and really empathizing with them to get clear on what they want, and then understanding how that fits into what you want, and making it a win-win all around. Alfonso.
Hi, guys.
Hey,
as
do you want to introduce yourself, Alfonso?
Yeah, sure. So you guys, I may be familiar to you. I work at a company called General Assembly.
Woo woo.
So for those of you who don't know, I produce the design programs. So I actually work with Sarah and Foz, with all of our UX graduates, who so many of them are here today, which is really nice to see. One thing one wall that we deal with a lot is the fact that we're a global company, but we're a local market for that company. And we work obviously in an industry that moves very fast. So when we want to make changes, it's hard to go through the process of like, well, this is what we're seeing, this is the feedback that we're getting, throw it up to global, wait for results, see what they want to do, etc. This microphone has no chill whatsoever. But, all right. So I think that I've never really subscribed completely to the idea of like it's better to ask for forgiveness and permission, but I will say that it's better to wait as long as possible to ask for permission. One thing that we do here is that like if we see an opportunity to do something, and I think this is kind of like the whole flower thing, what we try to do is we try to bring as much data into that flower and as much results into that flower. I'm going to turn this off. All right, I'm just going to walk around. This is great. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
This is how I run. This is how I do public speaking. I'm like, Alfonso, you do it.
This is great. Yeah, so I guess basically what I was trying to say is that when you in a situation where you need to get buy-in from people, just do as much as you can before you even ask for their buy-in, because if you can actually get some results, it works a lot better than just like a value proposition. So, you can call it an MVP, you can call it whatever you want, but yeah, basically, don't ask for permission until like you absolutely have to, because it works a lot better if you just go in and do it, and then you show them that it actually works.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing better than showing something, whether it's feedback or specific results that you've accomplished. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Hi. So my partner's answer to both of my problems was to go to people for help when I'm stuck. And what I took away from that was also that we're all very human and we need each other. So it's not just about getting what we want, it's about giving and receiving, and realizing that the person, like the person on the other end, maybe it's a back end person or somebody, a stakeholder or whatever, they're human beings too, and they need us. So that's what I got.
It's beautiful, and I think that ties into the comment earlier about having those like casual settings where you can all brainstorm the problems together, right? And I absolutely, we all have things that we need. Every single one of the people that you work with are trying to get something, right? So if you listen and help each other and allow that support and are willing to give it, then can really, really shift the culture of where you're working.
And it's sort of making all this stuff tactical too is sometimes difficult, right? Like I want to do this stuff and it sounds great at a conference, but then how do I do it on a daily basis? Like how many people, I don't know if I told you guys, I've heard this a million times of nothing important happens in your office. You get out, do this stuff over lunch, coffee, like all this soft stuff that we're talking about is great, but like to make it practical is really get into that one-on-one setting or one-on-many setting, make it more palatable, I guess, is the advice that you're hearing there, that I'm hearing there too.
Yeah. Well, which I think is a perfect segue into what we really want to leave you with is to find your tribe. Don't stop here. Keep these conversations going, and remember that we're all facing really similar things, and to really find the people you can turn to, that you can practice with, that you can ask, bounce ideas off of, and really, really work together. Because I think if we all do that, we can make it, as cheesy as it sounds, like we can make the world a more usable, more enjoyable, more beautiful place. And who doesn't want that, right?
So one more thing on your kind of giving a few minutes back to you guys. I think we're ahead of schedule, right? Awesome. So on your way to going to smaller groups that will be a little bit more personal, a little bit more intimate, it'd be great if you have all these post-it notes. There's a couple of whiteboards. There's spots on these on the middle one I'm being pointed to, on the wonderful sketchnoting going on there. Feel free to put those notes up there so we can actually read it. A lot of people did not volunteer, and it's perfectly fine because I don't like to be doing this either. But anyway, so feel free to share those, and let's give ourselves about 5-10 minutes to read them before we go to our next thing.
So put on things you learned, things you want to practice, so we can remember. If you guys have any interest in learning more about coaching or becoming a coach, I'd love to talk with you. If you're interested in General Assembly, I'd also love to talk to you. And there are a lot of people here who can share their experience firsthand of it. There are classes going on right now on the 8th floor, so feel free to walk down there and check it out. And thank you guys so much for participating, making this really fun for me, and being willing to speak in front of everyone.